Right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining today's webinar hosted by QuSecure in partnership with Accenture and our very special guest, Larry Wade, PayPal's head of risk for blockchain, crypto, and digital currencies. Yesterday marked a significant milestone for the security community as NIST released its long-awaited finalized post-quantum encryption standards and is now encouraging everyone to begin the migration process. This development signifies that the classical encryption methods, which we relied on to safeguard communication, including those used in blockchain and digital currencies, are now deemed obsolete. These new NIST standards raise the bar for business and security leaders, emphasizing the need for a shift to post-quantum resistant protocols to safeguard the critical data of organizations and customers. And today, we are here to help bring clarity on the next steps organization leaders can take to ensure their assets are properly secure. As post-quantum cyber is now a part of virtually every Fortune 500 three-year security roadmap, and the top 12 financial institutions in the US are all well into their adoption of post-quantum, we are proud to be leading the charge in the US federal government and with industry leaders alongside Accenture to enable business and security leaders to fully centralize encryption controls and make sure that this encryption upgrade is manageable and also give them the controls to navigate the next one. We are very excited today to get the perspective on the industry from the industry leader, Larry Wade, whose charter is to protect some of the world's most fundamental digital financial infrastructure, as well as the perspective of Tom Patterson, who leads the quantum and space security at Accenture. We're so grateful to have him and the whole Accenture team as a partner. Tom, over to you.
Thanks, Meg. As always, it's great to be here with our partner QuSecure, and especially today. I mean, today is such a great day. You know, for those of us that have been working quietly, it seems, in the quantum security business, in my case, since 2015. This is really an important time in our lives to go and transition to the next phase of global adoption of some of the defenses. So again, my name's Tom Patterson. I've got a portfolio of emerging technology security at Accenture, which is really I think, the best job in the world. You know, generative AI, was emerging, has now emerged. Quantum security is emerging, is about to have a major impact. And again, this week is the big bell ring for the start of that from an adoption perspective globally. And then behind that, we have space security, which you'll be hearing more about in the future. And interestingly, they all start to converge. These new technologies are all reliant on each other, all leverage each other, and all maximize each other when you really think about them. And when you lead with security, just like we do in the traditional enterprise areas, when you lead with security in the emerging tech areas, you get really good positive results earlier on. You lower the risk. Today is going to be a great talk. I'm glad everybody was able to dial in and listen in for two reasons. One, yesterday, as Meg mentioned, NIST concluded the first phase of the standardization process to give us new algorithms that we know will stand up to a quantum computing attack. We have been working on this problem. We've been thinking about this problem for years and years. The whole world has gotten together to try and solve this problem. They've come up with all sorts of different algorithms and, hey, let's try this, let's try that. And the smartest people in the world would bang on it. When I say smart, not just quantum smart, but cryptography smart, mathematics smart, cybersecurity smart, enterprise smart. Everybody really worked together to hone to get to these new standards. So when NIST says that we have these first of these new quantum security standards now available worldwide, that is a big deal. We've had CISOs, Accenture works with the biggest companies around the world. And for the last few years, I've worked with many of the CISOs who have said, we don't want to start until we know that there's an answer for us, as we know that there are algorithms that will work for us. Well, now we do. So yesterday was really that opening bell. This week is when companies are starting to really amp it up and take that new threat of a quantum computing attack on their enterprise, take that seriously and start to work on the right defenses. So big day for that. The second real thing, well, I think you're in for a treat today, is both the subject and the people that we've got together on this webinar. The subject is financial services security. As most of you probably know, financial services, along with governments, are the earliest adopters of all security offerings. They have the biggest risk, they have the biggest budgets, and therefore they take this, they're able to take this the most seriously early on. So what financial services does, the rest of the critical infrastructure and then the rest of the world soon follows. So having a financial services leader like Larry on board, who's both a security expert, a quantum expert, a crypto expert, a financial services expert, to have him on board and talking with Rebecca Krauthammer, who's one of my favorite quantum security experts on the planet. It's really good. You're in for a big treat as you work together. There's a few things that I want to think about asking them at the end of this thing and pepper them with questions. This is for you guys. But let's talk about the reasons we want people to start now, to start with and get their strategy going, to do the discovery work and understand what's going to need to be changed, and then to come up with their new architectures in order to figure out how they're going to mitigate this. This is a multi-year process for everybody. So it's not something to wait on. It's not something to just download the new algorithm and swap it out, but going through that plan proactively rather than reactively. Do you want to be the one taking that call from your boss or your boss's boss's boss when they read in the headline of a newspaper that some adversary is now able to completely shut off all your communications or read all your communications or modify all your communications? You don't want to be in that position. You want to have already mitigated this. So starting early, being proactive in the cost there versus being reactive in the cost there. Want to point out that not only was the NIST announcement yesterday, which you should all download and understand, very significant, but there have been several others. And to look at the White House's announcement dated July of 2024, which was a message not to you and not to me, but to Capitol Hill. It was a funding request for quantum security for the government, for the federal. It said, hey, we need this money to be put into the government's budget next year. That budget request is $7.2 billion to go through this process. Now, they've got a bigger attack surface than you do, and they've got a more complex system and enterprise than you do. But this is an indicator. This is not just a simple download and swap it out. You need a strategy, you need discovery, and you need an architecture that goes in and does this. And one of the great things about this talk is you're going to have focus on this concept of cryptography agility. Most of our clients around the world are aiming towards, they understand that they're in general needing to take management of their encryption estate better than they've ever done before. It's too important. It's too needing to change, use the right algorithm in the right implementation with the right library, the right key length at the right time based on threats and based on performance requirements, based on devices and countries. All of those now need to be taken into account. You cannot do that manually anymore. You can't just say, put in DES or put in AES and you're done. There has to be an orchestrated way to approach this. These new tools are available. We're putting them in around the world into banks and governments and other industries, but ask them away about what's real, what's possible, what the future holds. So you've got Rebecca, you've got Larry on board. You're teed up to go with this. I'm going to turn it over to them and wish you guys for a great discussion. And hopefully you ask great questions at the end, and I'll be online to answer any questions you have of me and Accenture as we go forward together. Thanks, everybody, and let me turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Tom. And we didn't get to go into Tom's background, but it would probably take 30 minutes just to cover all the cool stuff that Tom's done and why he's such a world leader in this space. So if you have a chance, you should look into that and also reach out. And now it is my great pleasure to reintroduce at this point Larry Wade. And Larry and I got to meet a little while back at a World Economic Forum summit. And we were both speaking. I got to see Larry speak on, I think, Web3 and blockchain and digital currencies. And then Larry attended our talk about quantum and the quantum threat and the quantum economy. And then we just kind of vibed at the end. And Larry coming from the perspective of overseeing risk and compliance for blockchain, digital currencies, and crypto. For what I think PayPal is the largest fintech in the world. Correct me if I got that a little bit wrong. And of course, Larry's awesome because he's passionate about this, right? And he's very forward-looking and visionary when it comes to protecting PayPal and PayPal's customers. And so I'm excited to have you here today, Larry, and for us to dive into it. But I think first, because we have people attending from all walks of life and all different levels of background on these technologies, would love to hear just your intro to your role, the importance of these digital technologies in the world, and of course why something like the quantum threat to encryption and why these new mandates are very, very important to pay attention to.
Yeah, no, thanks, Rebecca. Well, one, really excited to be here with you, and I am passionate about this topic. It's interesting. We're at a time where it could be a little scary, but it's also probably one of the most exciting times we've ever had in humanity. This convergence of technologies that can make life better, that can solve problems we've never thought, just unlock value in ways that we've never seen possible. So again, my name is Larry Wade. I head up global risk and compliance for PayPal's blockchain, crypto, and digital currencies group, which also includes our Zoom cross-border payments business. Depending on market cap, et cetera, PayPal, the largest fintech in America, over 400 million wallets, two-sided network, over 200 countries, really just trying to add value to the ecosystem and, help democratize, payments, et cetera. But my mandate is to, how do you have this innovative product suite, i.e. blockchain, digital assets, and we'll get a little bit into just there are nuances to it as we go forward, into this established fintech where you need to protect the base business while simultaneously innovating, while you have all of these, for lack of better words, threats coming from the outside that you must account for, where a lot of the times we've actually never seen them. So I spend a lot of time thinking of what is that 80% that I can leverage that's tried and true, and that 20% delta that kind of keeps me up at night. I spend time trying to be creative and think of where the puck is going.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Larry. And I think where we'll start digging in is with institutions and governments. So where do you think institutions and governments should be focusing right now to strengthen their defenses, especially against quantum and AI attacks on blockchain, digital assets, and the respective ecosystems?
I've been in risk management for a while, and there's this interesting dance around cost benefit, understanding an emerging risk, addressing existing risk, and then how do you deploy just resources, right? Time, money, et cetera. What I've found is that you want to start taking a very practical approach, i.e. start the conversation, start educating yourself, figure out where's the low-hanging fruit. You don't want to be an alarmist, but again, the last thing you want is for something to be at your doorstep and you kind of had the ability to foresee that it might be there, and you didn't do anything to start trying to put in any kind of preventative or detective controls. Once you start thinking about that low-hanging fruit, you can start beginning that process of kind of how do we risk assess, et cetera. So in my view, given that cost benefit analysis I mentioned earlier, governments are best suited to lean in first. They have the resources. They protect value, data, national security. So what you wouldn't be able to do is show use cases, lower the risk of the private sector coming in to say, we know something is tried and true. The ability to reduce cost, as now some of the tinkering that's required with these emerging technologies is utilized within the government. And then you can start having that beautiful public-private partnership, which I think you kind of need to address these types of systemic problems and start to be able to address it. And then from a AI quantum perspective, AI it's interesting because AI is kind of a right now thing, right? We all kind of, we know ChatGPT, we know those things. And it's what are some of those risks? How do we have digital identity and asset provenance? You have things like deep fakes and all these different things. So you got to kind of start thinking about that right now, because that's here and now. Quantum is this, we know it's coming. It's not necessarily here, but it's on the horizon. And in my view, that's probably an even bigger vector, to be honest, just because think about it, whether it's data at rest or data in transit, anything that's cryptographically secured from data to value, you have that quantum threat there. So to me, it's governments start to lean in, Start to figure out how can you have proposed rulemaking with the private sector. How do you start bringing together and understanding that we have these now minimum NIST standards, right? Where we have that neutral party that's giving out those guidance, and how do we start addressing the idiosyncratic risk with all these various institutions?
It makes me think of so many things. I personally came out of the AI world into the quantum computing world in like 2018. In particular, because AI is happening now, and so much is going to be unlocked by quantum computing. It's going to take us to the next level, and we know what some of these threats are, and we know what some of the amazing things, like you were pointing to at the beginning, right? There's so many amazing things that we're going to accomplish in the next several years, and we do face ever changing. The more intelligent technology gets, the more intelligent the I think cybersecurity is always sort of a cat and mouse game. The defenses get better, the attacks get better, and so on and so forth. So these new standards are important, but agility, as Tom was saying, is even more important. But going back to what you're talking about, the dance with regulation must help innovation, must not kind of limit innovation. All that, bringing it back to, we're having this conversation the day after these final standards have come out, which is very, very cool. But the question for you is how can regulations change to tackle these challenges of quantum and AI?
So it's interesting. Oh yeah, sorry. Go.
Yeah, no, what you're saying, while still encouraging innovation, what's going to motivate change for the positive, but I guess on all fronts.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned something a moment ago, agile, right? So at PayPal, the way I kind of think of it is, again, when we launched PYUSD, which was the first regulated branded stablecoin by a major fintech, and last week was our year anniversary. And you look at PYUSD, which it's multi-chain right now, and we just crossed the $750 million market cap number. So we're on that way to $1 billion, really excited, starting to integrate it within, the PayPal ecosystem, and thinking, how can we really help customers, help society, how unlock value? How do you move in that way where there are risks that are emerging that we've just never seen before? So I like to kind of think in this framework way where it's, all right, we have a risk-based approach. What can we leverage from best practices? I kind of call it my zip code method. What zip code can we be in that we've seen before? And then we can dial in to find the right address, for lack of better words. And say risk-based approach, leveraging best practices, thinking of the tails, because we all know what happens in the middle of that distribution. Is that tail risk. At a minimum, are we aware of it? How can we kind of unwind? How do we partner effectively? So kind of thinking of this agile way to have a nice kind of playground to innovate. I think governments need to have a similar approach. In a situation like this, you definitely don't want to regulate by enforcement. You don't want to say, whoa, this technology is quite complex, and you know what? We'll just kind of let it go into the courts. You don't want to do that. On the other hand, you also don't want to exercise hubris and say, we know how to manage it given what we're seeing right now, because I'm sure you know much better than I. It changes at a rapid clip. So it's more so that framework and that ability to be agile and work within kind of, again, those guide rails, that's super important. So it's engaging with the private sector, thinking of the proposed rules, figuring out how do we have something that's flexible, not penalizing for mistakes, trying to think of what is that tail risk that can kind of bring things down, and kind of going about it that way. And then also just knowing, to be quite honest, game theory is alive and well in this situation. If you choose to not participate, well, then there's another country or regime that might. And at the end of the day, because of the convergence and the power of these technologies, you're looking at national security threats, you're looking at threats to GDP, you're thinking about falling behind from a technology perspective. So you must engage, but I think you need to engage thoughtfully, humbly, and collaboratively.
I love that part about game theory, because I think a lot of the time there's so much on like cybersecurity leaders' plates, and everything's a threat, right? So there can be this like motivation to wait, but I think something notable about the quantum threat to encryption in particular is I think people want to equate it to something like Y2K, where you had this line in the sand, you know exactly what the date timestamp is going to be for this threat. But in all likelihood, there's so much money going into developing this, what they call the cryptographically relevant quantum computer, from a government level, from a private level. If you're the one to finally get to something this powerful, we're unlikely as the public to know when that happens, right? Yep. You have something that lets you dominate the chessboard in that way. You're not really going to show your cards on that. So all that is to say, there's not going to be some big public event in all likelihood where it's okay, it happened. Now we can really scramble and fix this. You have to get things addressed beforehand. But, you know, yeah, love what you say about game theory. We have to really weigh the pros and cons, and everything is balanced. And, you know, to that end, what more concrete tips do you have for creating effective governance with that balance in mind?
I like to say from a risk and compliance perspective, there are a lot of great frameworks that are in place because things have blown up in the past. So you don't want to just throw the baby out with the bathwater. So it's understanding what from a pure risk and control perspective can you start looking at. So obviously you want to be able to say, what are minimum standards from, you know, fairly neutral parties that have been tested, adopted, and where no one has kind of any incentive to collude, right? It's more so this just kind of protects us all, that you can start to look at and adopt, right? So i.e. the NIST type standards. Then from there, how do you integrate that into your ecosystem? Because you got to start thinking of these idiosyncratic risks that are bespoke to your actual organization. So take crypto and blockchain. People think, oh, blockchain, crypto, Bitcoin, blockchain. Well, there's public blockchains and semi-private blockchains and private blockchains. In the digital asset space, you have, you know, bare asset cryptocurrencies such as a Bitcoin. You have more programmable crypto, where you're looking at the Ethereums of the world, or you're looking at stable coins like PYUSD, where that is a regulated dollar denominated stablecoin. You have this talk of central bank digital currencies from various governments around the world. All of those are different. And then throw in the fact that you have smart contracts, which allow those that trustless component of the blockchain ecosystem to execute. Well, there are many places where cryptography is introduced, from the entry point to within. And then from my perspective, now I really start going down a rabbit hole. How do you think about managing this type of risk in a decentralized blockchain ecosystem, right? These are things that just go kind of crazy. But what you want to be able to do is say, all right, what are those minimum standards that make sense, that we can adopt? What are some best practices? And then how do I start thinking of all the what could go wrongs in my particular organization? I can start to address. And if there is anything that's, again, low-hanging fruit, okay, wonderful. Maybe we can deploy a lot earlier. Whoa, this is a bigger long-term problem. The likelihood is low, but the impact is high. How do we start thinking about that as well? And just early, in a responsible way, starting to figure out how, as we continue to innovate, can we address them? That way it's just not a dead stop to a full acceleration because something's going wrong.
Yeah, 100%. And we, both in terms of the mandates that have passed, and you know, when we work with people to do this migration, you don't have to like eat the whole elephant at the same time. There are high priority use cases. You and I could probably name 3 for our respective organizations. And I think everyone out there could probably point to, you know, if you've got online banking customers, or electronic health records, these things that are pretty top tier that you need to start addressing quickly. And I think that's a really good message and a good next step. And I think that leads into our final question. You know, what we're talking about pretty much as a next step that feeds off what you're talking about is just start. start addressing the highest risks and don't get overwhelmed. But what, you know, to cap it off, what are some of the next steps you could give to execs to start moving forward in this ecosystem?
I think being humble is really important. These are complex topics that are ever evolving and evolving at a rate that we've never seen. So be humble, be kind to yourself, start having the conversations, continuous education. We all have to be lifelong learners, especially in the world we're in right now. Having these conversations within the company. If someone says something that might appear stupid, let's not degrade anyone. Let's make sure that we're starting to just have these conversations because this is all new. So that conversation, the education, and then that risk mapping. Again, it doesn't necessarily already have to be in Excel, but where are the major impacts? What are the risks? How are we addressing them? Has that been flattened out? And what do we need to start doing to address it? Third parties, internally, et cetera. Just having those conversations now, I think is a wonderful first start.
Fantastic advice, and totally agree, because there's quantum in the name. This can feel like a confusing topic, but we got to make it accessible to everybody, and it's really just a matter of let's get the protections right. So education, prioritize, absolutely. And with that, we are at time.
Awesome.
Larry, it is always such a pleasure to talk to
Absolutely. Same here.
you. Thank you so much. For anyone with additional questions, feel free to drop them again in the chat, or feel free to reach out to us. And with that, we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Beck.